In the hidden world of espionage, most missions stay buried forever. But once in a while, a story surfaces that is so daring, so unlikely, and so human that it becomes legend. What if I told you that Mossad once ran a fake luxury diving resort, not for profit, but as cover for one of the most extraordinary rescues in intelligence history? In the secretive world of intelligence, most operations are buried forever, their details erased, their heroes unnamed. Yet sometimes a mission emerges from the shadows that is so daring, so improbable, and so profoundly human that it becomes legend. For Israel's intelligence service, Mossad, there is such a story. It wasn't about killing an enemy or sabotaging a rival's plans. It was about saving lives, and it remains one of the boldest and most unlikely rescues ever attempted. To understand it, we need to go back to the late 20th century, when Ethiopia was collapsing into civil war, famine, and persecution. Amid the chaos lived a forgotten community, the Beta Israel.
Ethiopian Jews whose roots stretched back centuries.
They had lived in isolation, preserving their Jewish identity against all odds, dreaming of one day returning to the land of Israel. But in Ethiopia, they were treated as outsiders. Persecuted, starved, and caught in the crossfire of dictatorship and war, many risked everything to flee. They trekked across brutal deserts into neighboring Sudan, hoping to find safety. Instead, they found misery. Refugee camps were places of disease, hunger, and despair. For these people, escape seemed impossible. Yet across the sea in Israel, the government decided they could not be abandoned. Somehow, some way, they would have to be rescued. The task fell to Mossad, an intelligence agency already known for audacity. But how could thousands of people be smuggled out of a hostile country without sparking war or alerting the watching world? The answer was something so unlikely, so creative, that it still defies belief. In 1977, Mossad agents quietly purchased an abandoned resort on the Sudanese coast of the Red Sea. They refurbished the buildings, decorated the rooms, printed glossy brochures, and opened it as a luxury diving resort. To tourists, it seemed like paradise. Sun-soaked beaches, coral reefs, scuba gear, cocktails on the veranda. Guests arrived from Europe and beyond, never suspecting that the friendly staff welcoming them with smiles and handshakes were not hoteliers at all, but undercover Mossad operatives. By day, these agents taught diving lessons and served drinks. By night, they planned one of the most daring rescue operations in intelligence history. The cover was genius. A tourist resort explained the presence of foreigners, provided a legitimate business front, and allowed agents to move in and out without suspicion. But running the resort was only the surface of the operation. The real danger lay inland, in the refugee camps where thousands of Ethiopian Jews waited in desperation. Mossad operatives and their local allies organized convoys of trucks to ferry the refugees to the coast. Families were hidden under sacks of grain, crammed into vehicles, and driven through nights filled with fear. Soldiers patrolled the roads, militias roamed the deserts, and checkpoints loomed like traps. If discovered, the refugees would be slaughtered and the agents executed.
Every journey was a gamble with death, and yet they continued, mission after mission.
When the trucks finally reached the coast, the operation entered its most dangerous stage. Under the cover of darkness, Israeli naval commandos arrived offshore in Zodiac boats. They slipped silently across the waves, loaded the refugees, and ferried them back to waiting ships. By dawn, the boats were gone, leaving no trace. Back at the resort, Mossad agents greeted tourists with polite smiles, as though nothing had happened. The duality was surreal. In one moment, they were waiters and diving instructors. In the next, they were lifelines for a people who had been forgotten by the world. Despite the success of these maritime rescues, it became clear that moving people this way was too slow. Thousands remained in the camps, growing weaker every day. The mission needed to scale up, and Mossad responded with breathtaking audacity. They began arranging secret flights directly out of Sudan. In the dead of night, Israeli aircraft landed on remote airstrips. Whole families boarded, their fear mixed with disbelief, and before dawn the planes vanished into the sky, carrying them to Israel.
Each flight was a miracle of coordination. Officials had to be bribed, schedules had to be precise, and absolute silence had to be maintained. One loose word could doom everyone involved. Yet the flight succeeded again and again.
This phase became known as Operation Moses, and it pulled thousands out of despair and into a future they had dreamed of for centuries. Eventually, the world caught on. International media uncovered the story, and Sudan shut down the operation under pressure from Arab states. For a moment, it seemed the rescues were over, but Mossad was not finished.
A rescue even more extraordinary. Over just 36 hours in 1991, Israeli planes conducted an airlift that brought more than 14,000 Ethiopian Jews to Israel.
It was one of the largest and most daring covert evacuations in history, a feat of logistics and courage that remains almost unbelievable. What sets this mission apart is not only its scale or its secrecy, but its purpose. Intelligence agencies are usually associated with assassination, sabotage, and ruthless efficiency. But here was something different. Here was espionage turned toward compassion. Mossad agents risked everything not to destroy, but to save. They disguised themselves as resort staff, drove trucks through deserts, bribed officials, and coordinated airlifts, all in the service of rescuing people who could not save themselves. For the agents, it was a life of constant duality. One recalled the strangeness of it all, serving cocktails to tourists during the day, then risking execution by smuggling refugees across military checkpoints at night.
We lived two lives, he said. One for show, one for survival.
The stress was immense, the danger ever present, yet the mission went on because failure was unthinkable. For years, the story remained hidden, locked away in silence. Only later did the truth come out, and when it did, the world was stunned. Newspapers hailed it as one of the greatest intelligence operations of the century. Hollywood adapted it into films, though no dramatization could ever capture the raw tension of those nights. The pounding fear in every heartbeat, the silent prayers whispered as trucks rumbled through the desert.
What the public saw was a tale of daring, but for those who lived it, it was about survival, faith, and the belief that no obstacle was too great when lives were at stake.
The legacy of this mission is still alive today. The descendants of those rescued live in Israel. They serve in the army, attend universities, raise families, and contribute to society. Their very existence is proof of the mission's success. For the Beta Israel, the dream of returning home, preserved for centuries, was finally realized. And for Mossad, the operation remains a shining example of what intelligence can be when guided by humanity. This mission is remembered not as a tale of death, but as a triumph of life. In the ruthless world of espionage, where morality is often sacrificed for strategy, Mossad showed that compassion could be the driving force behind daring. Their greatest mission wasn't the one that killed the most enemies or struck the deepest blow. It was the one that saved the most lives.
It proved that even in the darkest corners of geopolitics, humanity can shine through, and that strength is not measured only by the battles you win, but by the lives you protect.
When we think of Mossad, the usual images are assassins, spies, and enemies hunted down in the night. But buried within that history is this extraordinary chapter: a fake diving resort, convoys across the desert, midnight rescues at sea, secret flights lifting into the dark sky. It sounds like a thriller, but it was real, and it changed thousands of lives forever. This was Mossad's greatest mission, not because it was the most violent or the most secret, but because it was the most human. Against impossible odds, with the world's eyes turned elsewhere, they risked everything to save those who could not save themselves. And maybe that is the real lesson. In the end, true strength is not in the enemies you defeat, but in the lives you choose to protect.